First of all, framing of the Constitution. Constituent Assembly. I said it is a story. Remember one more thing, there is a overlapping in the topics also, syllabus also. And when we talk about the paper 2 of the GS main examination, then we have got topics related to polity, governance, some social issues are there, and then international relations. Combinedly the paper is of 250 marks, combinedly. It is not only about Indian polity. This year no doubt sizable questions were there from the Indian polity portion. From the governance 2 or 3 questions were there, and that they were also very much factual also. But from the Indian polity section, understanding based questions were there. Then I was talking about overlapping of the syllabus. In the topic it is mentioned, landmark in the constitutional development. Basically, when we talk about the landmark in the constitutional development in India, it is the domain of our history teacher, because here we will have to discuss the constitutional developments under the British India. So British India is the domain of our history teacher, and basically the history teacher is a competent person, obviously a better person than a polity teacher to discuss those aspects. So the history teacher will help you in fighting for your independence. He will tell you that how you people were exploited under the British government, and then he will help you in fighting for your independence also. And after making you independent, my work starts. That is the formation, or we can say the framing of the Constitution. I'll make you to understand it, how the Constitution was framed. Then after that, I'll help you in understanding the Constitution also. But you people, you have a major challenge. First of all, you will have to fight for your independence. Then you will have to understand the Constitution, and if selected, then you will have to administer this country in accordance with this Constitution only. So that is why the understanding of the Constitution is required. So how it all started? After we can say India got independence, the question before us was, that is how India should frame its constitution. It was a challenging task before us, and it is a story, I said. And I did not write here, I deliberately wrote here Constituent Assembly, because it was a team effort, and it was decided that the members of the Constituent Assembly to be elected by the members of the provincial assemblies. Some of you may have read history also, you may be knowing that under the Government of India Act 1935, elections were held to elect the members of the provincial assemblies, because the Government of India Act 1935, it provided for the election to the provincial assemblies. You people have done your history or not? No, it will be done. Now I'll give you a brief idea about certain things. When we say Government of India Act, Government of India Acts were framed from time to time by the British Parliament, according to which Britain used to rule India. And in 1935, the Government of India Act which was passed, it provided for the elections to the provincial assemblies. And the elections were also held. Now you may be saying, sir, why the members of the provincial assemblies, they took part in the election of the members of the Constituent Assembly? Why we are talking about it? Why not the members of the Constituent Assembly were directly elected by the people? Because it is a criticism of the Constituent Assembly. You see that we were in a hurry to get the things intact. So basically we decided that if we will go for the direct election of the members of the Constituent Assembly by the people, it will be a tedious process. First of all, you will have to prepare the voters list. That will need resources, manpower also, it will take time also. Then we will have to conduct the elections. So that was one view. And then basically when we talk about the members of the provincial assemblies, they were elected by the people of India only. And just as we elect the members of the Rajya Sabha in the contemporary times, you know who elects the members of the Rajya Sabha? Who elects the members of the Rajya Sabha? Okay. Anyone who elects the members of the Rajya Sabha? How many of you are from outside Delhi? Okay. Oh, most of us. Okay. So from your state, first of all, you may be knowing or you may not be knowing, I don't know, that when we talk about the members of the Rajya Sabha, they represent your state in the parliament. For example, from Maharashtra, the members of the Rajya Sabha are there. Now, who will elect the representatives in the Rajya Sabha from Maharashtra? Your MLAs will elect. People do not directly take part in the election of the members of the Rajya Sabha. From Delhi, we elect 3 members in the Rajya Sabha. But on behalf of the people, it is our MLAs who elect 3 members in the Rajya Sabha. So this is the pattern which was adopted at that point of time. The names of the members were there. No doubt your history teacher will discuss these things with you. That under the Government of India Act 1935, elections were held to elect the members of the provincial assemblies. Central provinces, Bombay, then Bengal, United Provinces, these provinces were there. So members were elected in their respective provincial assemblies. No doubt the members had resigned in 1937. Done. Your teacher will definitely tell you the reason why they had resigned. But the names were there. That these people have been elected from Bombay, these people have been elected from the central provinces, these people have been elected from Bihar, the Bengal. So it was decided that the respective representatives they will elect their representative and they will send to the Constituent Assembly. So, it is a criticism of the Constituent Assembly because the members of the provincial assemblies were not elected on the basis of universal adult suffrage. Means every adult was not given the right to vote by the British. I'll tell you how to tackle these questions. But the elections were held, and after the elections were held, then during the elections, certain observations I'll tell you. Basically, it was a Congress dominated body, and the Congress ensured that even Dr. B.R. Ambedkar should get elected in the Constituent Assembly. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, you may be knowing, he was not a congressman. He had left the Congress because he had ideological differences with Gandhi, especially on the issue of untouchability. But he filed his nomination paper from Bengal, as the Congress had given the list of the candidates from Bombay, and earlier it was Bombay and he belonged to Bombay only, but he did not contest from there. He contested from Bengal, and the Congress ensured that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar should get elected. Then another name was Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, he also filed his nomination paper from Bengal. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was a right-wing leader of Jan Sangh. I deliberately used the word right-wing. Right-wing. And you will come across these terms, leftists, rightists. Who are leftists, who are rightists? Leftists are those who want a radical restructuring of the things. Nothing is good. We want, you see, sometimes you will be discouraged when you read the Hindu. That nothing is good in this country. Nothing is good in this country. Then it is the monopoly of, we can say, the yes, Nived, it is not the state legislatures, it is the MLAs who elect the leaders of the Rajya Sabha, members of the Rajya Sabha from the state. Okay, thank you. Now, when we say leftists and rightists, so leftists basically, nothing is good and we want to change the system. Rightists, they want to follow the status quo. And if you talk to a rickshaw puller and भैया सीधे हाथ जाना है, then he will go right, सीधे हाथ. And if you ask him उल्टे हाथ जाना है, he will go left, उल्टा, left. So basically left and right. Rightists are those who want to preserve the status quo. That is the rightists. Whereas when we say left, leftists want to make a radical restructuring of the things. They want to change the things. That is leftists. So basically he belonged to Jan Sangh. Jan Sangh is the organization which has got the BJP has its roots in the Jan Sangh only. Now, when Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee filed the nomination paper, then the Congress, it showed the highest level of tolerance, and it ensured that Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee should also get elected from Bengal. And directives were given by the High Command to the Provincial Assembly members of Bengal. Now, if someone asks you that the Constituent Assembly was not the true representative of the people of India, do you agree with this statement? Even in the interviews, if they can ask, because sometimes there is critics' view. So you should say that, sir, some historians are of the view that the Constituent Assembly was not the true representative of the people of India, because the members of the Constituent Assembly were elected by the members of the provincial assemblies, and the members of the provincial assemblies were not directly elected by the people on the basis of universal adult suffrage. So everyone was not the party to the voting. So there was limited suffrage. That is one thing. It is known as passive voice approach. This is known as passive voice approach. So in the examination, in the prelims, in the mains, in the interviews, wherever it is needed, we should adopt this passive voice approach. Historians are of the view. Some historians are of the view. Then again you will say that, sir, but on the other hand, if we talk about the structure of the Constituent Assembly, we see that the members of the Constituent Assembly, they belong to different parts of the country. North, South, East, West, Northeast, Central, every part was represented in the Constituent Assembly. And not only this, sir, people of different backgrounds, they were also there in the Constituent Assembly. They were lawyers, they were professionals, people from having social service as background, they were also there. People belonging to different ideologies, they were also there in the Constituent Assembly. The Socialist Bloc was represented by none other than Pandit Nehru. The rightists were represented by Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. And not only this, people belonging to different sections of the society and the downtrodden were represented by none other than Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So we cannot exactly say that the Constituent Assembly was not the true representative of the people of India. Because if you say, yes sir, the Constituent Assembly was not the true representative of the people of India, your result will be declared on that day only. Because if this candidate has no faith in the Constituent Assembly, how he will run this country in accordance with this constitution? ये तो बात ही हो जाएगा. He will, yes, how he will run this country in accordance with this constitution? So that is how you need to answer the questions. That is how we need to develop an understanding. Because it is not only prelims, it is not only mains. You will have to appear in the interviews also. For that, how you present your views in a very calm, cool and composed manner, that is going to, we can say, make difference. Then, when the first session took place, the Muslim League boycotted it and it demanded a separate Constituent Assembly for Pakistan. But we were focused from day one. Our leaders tried to talk to them. Let us be a united country, we will be a very powerful country. But the views were different. But we were focused from day one. No doubt, our leaders were talking to them and they continued talking to them till the mid of January 1947. But after that we thought it is a useless exercise, we should focus on our own work. We constituted different committees to look into the matter. And the Indian Constitution was based on consensus. How this consensus used to come? Again, an observation I love to talk to my students, because when I used to teach in the college also, I always love to discuss certain observations to develop an understanding, so that even understanding based questions can be solved by you in the prelims examination. You say that every part, after the first draft was prepared, it was presented before the Constituent Assembly for deliberations. Each and every topic, each and every chapter was discussed by the Constituent Assembly. The members used to speak their mind. Amendments were moved. And then, after that, voting used to take place in the Constituent Assembly. Whenever Dr. Rajendra Prasad used to see that some members are not going to vote in favor of that particular draft, the particular chapter, he used to adjourn the meeting for that day. Because he used to sit here and he used to observe, these some people, they will not be voting in favor of the part or this particular article, so I will not allow voting today. It was, he used to speak to himself. Okay. And he used to adjourn the meetings on that particular day. That the meeting is adjourned and we'll meet tomorrow, the house will meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. The Constituent Assembly used to have its meeting in the central hall of the Parliament. That is the old Parliament that we see, and the last meeting had taken place there only, and the joint sittings of the earlier parliaments used to take place there. After the end of that day's proceedings, it was not that the members used to go home. The formal meeting used to be over. After that, 1 or 2 hours later, members used to meet again. Not at that point, some other place. And they used to discuss that particular part again on which there was disagreement. Now see the dedication of our constitution makers. See the dedication of our constitution makers. The whole day these people used to sit. Again, after there was lack of consensus, they used to discuss the topic again. The members again used to speak their mind that we were opposing it because of these reasons. And basically again discussion used to take place. Sometimes the discussion used to take place till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And then in the informal meeting, agreement used to be arrived at. Okay, tomorrow formal changes will be made in this article. Okay, these changes will be made, these changes will not be made. Everyone agrees? Yes, everyone agrees. And then next day, Dr. Rajendra Prasad used to be informed that, sir, we want to have a discussion again on this topic. We'll move some amendments. And then after that, we can say that particular part used to be adopted. Now you may be thinking that what was the need of such type of drama? Some people may be saying, no, it hardly matters. Voting is there. The whole world was observing the framing of the would-be largest democracy of the world. And in the visitors gallery, not only the Indians were sitting, but the foreigners were also sitting, and they were writing that how the Constitution of India was being drafted. Why in the history it will be said that the Indian Constitution was adopted not hearing of the voice of the smaller group of people. That is why consensus was developed. And the observations that I told you is not a pat on the back by an Indian that we had done a very good work. This is an account from a foreigner who was sitting in the Constituent Assembly. His name was Granville Austin, and he wrote the most, we can say, famous book on the framing of the Indian Constitution, the Constitution of India, the cornerstone of the nation. And in that book he had written this observation that I told you. So a foreigner has, we can say, he has spoken good of the framing of the Indian Constitution. So the summary is the Indian Constitution was based on consensus. समझ गए? It was based on consensus. After that, when the first draft was ready, it was circulated among the people. 8 months were given to the people of India to give their views. And after that, basically, many amendments were received by the Constituent Assembly. Many of them were adopted by the Constituent Assembly, discussed in the Constituent Assembly. And finally, the Constitution of India, it was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on which date? What was the date? 26th of November 1945. 9. Very good. So, and on which date the constitution came into force? 26 January 1950. The date, the reason you people may be knowing. But I have a question in my mind, that why it is observed as Republic Day, not as the Constitution Day, 26 January. It is observed as Republic Day. Why not Constitution Day? नहीं ठीक है, वो तो everyone knows. In the school times also we used to do that. We used to read that speech. That in the Lahore session, the demand for Purna Swaraj was adopted. That is a different thing. But why the nomenclature Republic?
26 November, some provisions of Constitution was already commenced as citizenship and all. On 26 January, the other provisions came into force because of the whole half provisions were on 26 November. That is why Constitution Day was celebrated on 26 November.
No, but why the term Republic Day is used? How it became a republic?
First, India was a dominion of the British Empire.
Huh.
But the Constitution did not come into force.
What is a republic? What is the difference between republic and democracy? Republic is the head of the state is an elected one. And on 26 January 1950, Dr. Rajendra Prasad had taken oath as the first president of India. He was an elected president. Done. Because the Constituent Assembly had elected him. And he had taken oath. Because before that, our governor generals were there. Even C. Rajgopalachari was appointed. He was not elected. So, we had an elected head of the state. Now, some facts from the prelims point of view, I will tell you, you can note it. The elections for the Constituent Assembly, were held in July 1946. In July 1946. Next, the members of the Constituent Assembly, were elected by the members of the provincial assemblies. Next, the first session of the Constituent Assembly was held on 9th December 1946. 9th December 1946. It was presided over by Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. It was presided over by Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. Next, the Muslim League boycotted the session. and demanded a separate constituent assembly for Pakistan. Next, on 11th December 1946, on 11th December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of the Assembly. President of the Assembly. Next, Sir B.N. Rao. Sir B.N. Rao was the constitutional or legal advisor to the Constituent Assembly. He was basically the man behind the Constitution of India, and if you are interested, when you go home today, you just read about him. He is the unsung hero of the Constituent Assembly. He is not a person who can get votes for the political parties. That is why we do not remember him. But he was a very learned person, and not only India, many of the countries had invited him for the framing of their own constitutions. He was such a learned person. And whenever Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and the drafting committee had any confusion, they used to consult Sir B.N. Rao. Then next, on 13th December 1946, Pandit Nehru presented the objective resolution. So, such questions are asked in the prelims examination, especially state PCS examination. UPSC rarely asks such questions. Even for the purpose of continuity, I am telling you some points here. But in the state PCS examination, such questions are: which of the following statement is correct? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had presented the objective resolution. Pandit Nehru had presented the objective resolution. So it was Pandit Nehru. Some of you may be thinking that what was this objective resolution? Basically, the objective resolution was a document which talked about the objectives of the Constituent Assembly, which was later on incorporated as the preamble of the Constitution. That what is the objective of this Constituent Assembly? Then next point you can write: the assembly constituted 22 committees to give inputs on various aspects. Next, the drafting committee was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It was the most important committee, the drafting committee, because this committee had drafted the constitution of the country. And along with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, some other members were also there. For your knowledge, you can write their names also. The other members of the committee were Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer, Alladi, Allallaida, Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer, comma, K.M. Munshi, Muhammad Sadullah, SAADULA, Muhammad Sadullah, comma, N. Gopalaswamy, comma, B.L. Mittar, Mittar, Mittar. In bracket you write, he was replaced by N. Madhav Rao, RAU. So B.L. Mittar he was sick, so he was replaced. Then next you can write D.P. Khaitan, KHAITN, D.P. Khaitan. In bracket you write, he was replaced by T.T. Krishnamachari. So Mr. Khaitan had died, so that is why T.T. Krishnamachari had taken over. So this was the composition. In some of the state PCS examination, they asked the name of the members, especially K.M. Munshi is there in the option, which is the correct option. Then coming to the next paragraph or next point, you can write. One more thing I'll tell you, that is when you will be appearing in your state PCS examination, if it is held, yes, because in many of the states there is no regularity in the state PCS examinations also. So if you will be appearing, then in that year what you need to do, you can just have a glance over the committees which were there and their chairman. In the state PCS examination, such questions can be asked. UPSC never asks such questions. The next point you can write, the constitution was based on consensus. The constitution was based on consensus. Next, the Constituent Assembly had adopted the Constitution on 26th November 1949. On 26th November 1949. Next, from that day, some of the provisions came into force like Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 324, 366, 367, 379, 380, 388, 391, 392, 393 and 394. In bracket you write, as per article 394, as per article 394. So you say in our constitution in article number 394 it is written that which of the articles will come into force from 26th of November 1949. Done. So all these article numbers have been mentioned in article number 394 only. It is not an abstract thing that I have told. Then next point you can write, the rest of the constitution came into force from 26th January 1950. Then note you can write here, 26th November is observed as the Constitution Day, full stop. Its objective is to create awareness with respect to W.R.T, with respect to the constitutional values and to imbibe the spirit of the constitution in the people. Imbibe the spirit of the constitution in the people. So such type of understanding based questions will be there. Which of the following is an objective of observing the Constitution Day? So such questions can be asked in the examination. Now at its commencement, means when the Constitution started, so it had 395 articles, you can note it. At its commencement, the Constitution had 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Then at present it had approximately 485 articles divided into 25 parts and 12 schedules. Now I have deliberately written here approximately, I will tell you the reason. So first of all you will have to understand the article numbers, how to read them, what is a part, what is a schedule, then only you will be able to read the Constitution of India in a better way and to understand it. देखो, first of all when we talk about the parts, the broader classification of the Constitution is in the parts like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4a, part 5, like this. And after the parts we have the articles of the Constitution. Like this. So first of all there are the parts and then the article numbers are there. Some of the parts have got different dimensions, they are multi-dimensionals. देखो, till 4a we have the part numbers and then we have the articles. But when we talk about part 5, part 5 is multi-dimensional, part 5 is the union. It is just for your understanding. I am not teaching you anything. It is the union, and within the union we have got the union executive, the parliament, that is the legislature, we have the judiciary. So they have been written like this. So after the part we have got chapter 1. That is the executive, and then we have got the article numbers related to the president, vice president, council of ministers. Then so we have got articles, and then chapter number 2, and then again articles. So the bigger parts have got chapters also, and then after the chapters we have got the articles. So in some of the parts we have got the part and articles, in some of the parts we have got the part, then chapter, and then within the chapters we have got the articles. Then when we talk about the articles, you see we have written that we have got approximately 485 articles, approximately I have said. What is the logic behind it? You see, in the Constitution you will come across certain numbers like 1, 2, 3, then you will come across certain numbers. If you see a number like this 1, 2, 3, 19, 21, it means that they were there in the original Constitution. They were there in the original Constitution. Now, the some of the articles, they can have some clauses also. Clauses have been written like this or interchangeably like this, small a. So if I say in the class article 19 clause 1, you can write like this. If I say article 19 clause a, we need to write like this, clause a. It is a part of article 19, because in some of the articles clauses have been written like this. In some of the articles, it is the small numerical that has been used. Then some clauses can have sub clauses also. Article 19 clause 1 sub clause A. So if I say like this, Article 19 clause 1 sub clause A, it is a part of Article 19 only, it is not a separate article. Then if you see capital letters, wherever you see Article 21A, it means that it was not there in the original constitution, it was added by an amendment to the constitution. It is a separate article. It is a separate article. Similarly, A, capital B, capital C, all these were not there in the original constitution, they were added later on. So these are separate articles. So when you count the article numbers, we need to count 1, 2, 3, this one, then capital A, capital B, capital C, and then it will be around 490 or 485, 88 articles. Why I said approximately? Because it keeps on changing. For example, today I will tell you 487 articles. Tomorrow, the Women Reservation Bill after ratification by the states get passed. Then obviously articles will be amended. Some articles can be incorporated also. Done. Some new articles can be added. Some articles can be repealed also. It keeps on changing. So that is why we use the word approximately. Because nowhere it is asked how many articles are there in the constitution. Because today you will read something, tomorrow it will change also. So that is why such questions are never asked even in the school quizzes also. They ask how many articles were there in the original constitution. Now you will say that why not Article 396, 397, 398 have been written like, there is a logic behind it. Unnecessarily, it will make your constitution a bulky one. No doubt it is bulky, but it will be haphazard one. Then you will say, sir, what is the logic of incorporating the articles? The articles have been incorporated nearest to their theme, the existing theme. For example, Article 21. Article 21 is related to right to life. Article 21A, it is related to right to education. Right to education is needed to make your life more meaningful. It is related with our right to life. That is why after Article 21, 21A. Similarly, if we talk about 51A, fundamental duties, the last article of Directive Principles of State Policy, that was the earlier philosophical part, was Article 51. Done? And after that, Article 52, that is the provisions related to the Union Executive. So obviously you will have to continue the philosophical part, because rights of the people, Directive Principles of State Policy, and then duties of the people also, or the citizens also, 51A. So in this way, as far as possible, the articles have been written down nearest to their theme. That is the logic that is taken care of. So if I say Article 300A, it is capital A. Done. If I will say 300 clause A, then it will be small a. Done. This is the basic logic that I told you. Then when we talk about schedules, schedules are explanation of some of the articles. If someone will ask you what are schedules, so schedules are the explanation of some of the articles. You see, some of the articles of the constitution, they need explanation. How? For example, Article 1 says India, that is Bharat, shall be union of states. Now if you start writing the name of all the 28 states there, then what is there in the next article? The continuity will be broken. The coherency of the document will not be there. That is why the name of the states have been mentioned in schedule number 1. That is okay, see schedule 1 if you want to know the name of the states. Similarly, in one of the articles of our constitution, it is mentioned that the center state legislative relations will be based on the three lists. So if you start writing the name of the three lists, union list, state list and concurrent list there only, obviously this article and the next article, the coherency will be lost. So just as all in the standard textbooks you have seen, C appendix 1, C appendix 2, उसमें क्या होता है, tables are given, we can say the facts are given, 1 or 2 pages of tables are given, so that you will not be confused there. अगर अच्छा, if you want to see the subjects in the list, see schedule number 7. So schedules are the explanation of some of the articles. In the original constitution, how many schedules were there? 8. Now we have got 12 schedules. So from the prelims point of view, you need to know the 9th schedule was added by the First Amendment Act, (1951). 10th was added by the 52nd Amendment Act, 1985. 11th was added by the 73rd Amendment Act, 1992, and 12th was added by the 74th Amendment Act, 1992. This is important from your prelims point of view. So Amendment Act, टर्न बिल और एक्ट में डिफरेंस होता है. When we say bill is the initial stage of a law. It is a draft of a law. Bill is the draft of a law which is made by the legislature, and after the bill is passed, then it becomes an act or a law. Done. So these were some very basic things. That is how you need to write the article numbers, how to understand it. Now, another basic thing that we need to know before we will proceed further, it is the kinds of majority under the Constitution of India. Kinds of majority under the Constitution of India. देखो, in the running notes you can write like this, कोई problem नहीं. Constitution, you can encirculate Parliament, you can encirculate writing P. In the examination, standard abbreviations will be there. Now, when we say majority is the number required to pass a resolution or a bill in the legislature. It is the number required. So, in the newspapers you may be coming across such type of term that this majority is required for this purpose. So, in the very beginning I felt that I should tell you about the types of majority. The first type of majority is simple majority. simple majority is more than 50% of the members present and voting. More than 50% of the members present and voting. देखो, here it is 50% of the members present and voting, more than 50%. What is this present and voting? Suppose in the Lok Sabha, we have a strength of 543 members. All the members are not present in the house daily. Suppose on a particular day, 520 members are present, and suppose when the voting takes place, it is also not necessary that all the members should vote. It is not necessary. So even if the members are present in the house, they may not take part in the voting. Done? It is known as abstention. Abstention means a member is present in the house but he is not taking part in the voting. So suppose 20 members abstain. Abstain means they are present in the house but they do not take part in the voting. So present and voting will be 500, and simple majority here will be 500 divided by 2 plus 1. Why plus 1? Otherwise it will be 50-50. That is why it is more than 50% of the members present and voting. It is also known as working majority. Now, for those who may not have understood it, I will try to make you understand the things. Suppose the strength of our class is that of 120 students. Now, out of 120 students, suppose 100 of us are present in the class today. So, how many of you are present in the class today? How many of you? 100. Now, suppose if I ask you a question that how many of you want a holiday tomorrow? It is a hypothetical question, there will be class tomorrow. So, if I ask you a question that how many of you want a holiday tomorrow, out of 100 who are present today, suppose 10 of you will say, sir, we will not take part in such type of voting. If there will be class, we will come, otherwise we will also take rest. So 10 of you, what you did? What you did? You abstained. Is it clear to all of us? So you are present in the house, but you did not take part in the voting, that is abstain. So how many of us are present as well as voting in the class? 90. What will be the simple majority? 90 divided by 2 plus 1. So it is the easiest majority required under the Constitution of India. Now you can write here as note, N-O-T-E. Wherever the Constitution is silent, wherever the Constitution is silent, on the type of majority required, on the type of majority required comma, it is assumed that simple majority is required. It is assumed that simple majority is required. Now, wherever it is mentioned in the Constitution that the resolution has to be passed by the House, the bill has to be passed by the House, then it means simple majority will be required. Because wherever there will be specific majority that will be required, that will also be mentioned. So, wherever it is written down, it has to be passed by the House. It means simple majority will be required. वहाँ ये नहीं पूछना चाह रहे सर where it is written, it is not written, then only simple majority will be required. Then coming to the, is it clear to all of us? Sure. ठीक. हाँ बोलो.
Suppose minimum strength required is 10%, right? So 55 is according to this. So if suppose 60 members are there, then 31.
Yes.
इतने पे भी काम करेंगे.
Yes. Only the requirement is quorum has to be there. Quorum is 1/10. So to have the meeting, the quorum has to be there. And if the quorum is there, then obviously you can fulfill this majority also. Coming to the next type of majority. It is absolute majority. Absolute majority is more than 50% of the total strength or membership of the House. It is also known as majority of the House. When we say majority of the House, means majority of the whole House. It is fixed. In the Lok Sabha, it will be 543 divided by 2 plus 1. Here the total number will be taken. Whether a person is absent, present, it hardly matters. Where it is written, wherever it will be written that this majority of the whole House is required, then 543 divided by 2 plus 1, it will be 272. Then in the Rajya Sabha, 245 divided by 2 plus 1, then in the Delhi Legislative Assembly, 70 divided by 2 plus 1, then in the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly, 200 divided by 2 plus 1, in the UP State Legislative Assembly, it will be 403 divided by 2 plus 1. I am giving you some examples. So, it is not only in case of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, it can be there in the assemblies also. Now, you may be thinking that where this majority is required. The first and the foremost important thing that you need to understand is this majority is required for the government formation. Done? So the party which gets more than 50% of the seats in the Lok Sabha elections, that is this number, that political party will form the government at the central level. Done? It can be a party, it can be a coalition also. So that is the बोलते हैं ना magic number, magic figure. This is, we can say, the majority of the house. So in 2024 elections, the party which gets more than 272 seats or 272 or more seats, then that political party will form the government. The BJP has formed the government because the BJP has got more than 272 seats in the Lok Sabha. Similarly, in Rajasthan, we are going to have the assembly elections. Then, so in Rajasthan, the political party that will get more than 50% of 200 seats, means 101 seats, that political party or the coalition will form the government. Basically, I wanted to give you an idea that how the government formation is done. Because many of us, we start preparation, but we do not develop an understanding of the political process. So we need to develop an understanding, that is how the government formation is done. So the election takes place and the party which gets more than 50% of the seats in the Vidhan Sabha elections, or we can say in the Lok Sabha elections in the case of center, that political party or the coalition will form the government. In Karnataka, the Congress formed the government. Why? Because the Congress had got more than 50% of the seats in the Karnataka State Legislative Assembly. So this is absolute majority. So it is used in the case of formation of the government. Then effective majority. It is more than 50% of the effective strength or the then strength of the house. In absolute majority, it was more than 50% of the total strength. Then total strength of the house. Here it is more than 50% of the effective strength or the then strength of the house. Now what is this effective strength? Or the then strength? It is strength of the house minus the vacancies. Here here we had earlier we had counted the vacancies also. 543 means 543. Whether a person is absent, present, the seat is vacant, it hardly matters. But here the vacancies will not be counted. For example, suppose in the Rajya Sabha, we have a strength of 243 members. Now suppose one member is dead, two members have resigned. These are the vacancies. So we have got 3 vacancies here. So effective strength or the then strength will be strength of the house minus the vacancies. It will be 240. And majority required will be 240 divided by 2 plus 1. It is the effective strength. So 3 seats are vacant, we are not counting them. देखो, in the here more than 50% of the effective strength. Here, what we had, the more than 50% of the total strength. So we, in case of absolute majority, we had taken this number 243. Okay. Sorry, Rajya Sabha we have got 245 members. So what will be the strength here? 242. So here you see 245 is the strength of the Rajya Sabha. It is the total strength. If we would have taken into consideration the absolute majority, 245. But here we are taking into consideration effective majority. There is more than 50% of the effective strength. The effective strength is 242. Why? Because there are 3 vacancies here. There are 3 vacancies here. So here we will not be taking into consideration the vacancies. So 242 divided by 2 plus 1. Here you are present, absent, it hardly matters. Done? In absolute majority we had taken this number. In effective majority 3 vacancies are there. We will not be taking into consideration 3 vacancies. Here vacancies will not be counted. The effective strength, the then strength. So at that point of time house का strength कितना है वो हम ध्यान देंगे. Now where this majority is required, you can note it. This majority is required first in the Rajya Sabha for the passage of a resolution for the removal of the vice president. So if the vice president of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankad, is to be removed, then the resolution will be introduced only in the Rajya Sabha and the Rajya Sabha will pass it by an effective majority. Done. So the Rajya Sabha will pass it by an effective majority, then the Lok Sabha will approve it by simple majority. So here in the Rajya Sabha effective majority will be required, not in the parliament. We have used the word Rajya Sabha here. So if the vice president is to be removed, the resolution is introduced only in the Rajya Sabha and the Rajya Sabha will pass it by effective majority. After that, Lok Sabha will approve it by a simple majority. I will tell you this process again when I will be discussing the vice president with you. Then next, in the respective legislatures for the passage of resolution for the removal of their presiding officers Now, who are the presiding officers? In case of, it is the speaker and deputy speaker in case of Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. Chairman and deputy chairman of state legislative councils and deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. Chairman I had mentioned because the vice president is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, that is why I have not mentioned it. So in a nutshell, basically, if the presiding officer is to be removed, then this majority will be required in that house only. For example, if the speaker of Kerala assembly is to be removed, then this majority will be required in the Kerala state legislative assembly. If the chairman or deputy chairman of the Maharashtra legislative council is to be removed, because we don't have legislative councils in all the states, only in some of the states we have got legislative councils. So how many of you belong to the states where we have got legislative councils? You belong to? Bihar. Maharashtra, okay. Karnataka. How many of you are from Karnataka in the class? So you have got legislative council, okay. Maharashtra, how many of you? You people also have got a legislative council, okay. Uttar Pradesh, UP also has got two houses, one is legislative assembly and legislative council. Then Andhra Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh also we have got legislative council and legislative assembly. Then Telangana, so we have legislative council in Telangana also. Then any state I have not mentioned? 6 only, okay. So suppose if the chairman or deputy chairman of the legislative council of any of these 6 states have to be removed, then the resolution will be required to be passed in that house only. Suppose if the speaker of the Tamil Nadu state assembly is to be removed, the deputy speaker of the Karnataka assembly is to be removed, this majority will be required in that state assembly only. So basically for the removal of the presiding officers, you will require this majority, done, and nowhere else. Here now the logic is, the vice president is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, and that is why for the removal of the vice president, the resolution is to be passed by an effective majority in the Rajya Sabha. So there is another type of majority, that is a special majority, that will be taking up for discussion in tomorrow's class. We will stop here for the day. I will see you tomorrow.